Previously, the game picked up with everyone splitting into 3 smaller groups and making their way to various locations within town. Adria, August, and Isaac headed off to speak to the carpenter to see if he could provide them with any information. They went inside the shop, and Isaac was able to convince the carpenter fairly quickly to let them take a look at his carts. They then headed back outside, where Isaac cast Detect Magic, and discovered that there were 2 carts parked outside the shop with magic on them. Elsewhere, Tyr also had Detect Magic up, and he and Eversong took a look at some of the carts around town. They came across one parked outside a house, and after speaking with Cater, the woman next door, they found out it belonged to a man named Ralph. Then they moved on, Tyr's spell eventually leading them to the carts parked outside the carpenters, as well as 3 of their new companions. The 5 of them took a closer look at the carts. One of them had illusion magic on it, and Adria quickly realized it was larger than it looked. She found a locked box hidden inside it, and Isaac and Tyr went inside to ask about that, while the others poked at the other wagon that had abjuration magic on it. It quickly became apparent that the carpenter did the occasional smuggling to make ends meet, on top of also making high-quality sex toys. Speaking of sex toys, while all this was going on, Kess and Zarakir headed to the Velvet Petal to talk with Madame Waterfall, since she knew all the best gossip in town. She wasn't surprised to hear about the mayor trying to hush up dead bodies going missing, and she'd heard some rumors from a customer. She pointed them towards Claudia, the innkeeper in town, as one of her staff members had been having trouble sleeping a few weeks back due to odd noises coming from her neighbor's house at night. They made their way to the inn to speak to Claudia, who pointed them towards a woman named Cater. She also mentioned that Cater was one of many people in town who'd been sick recently. As they left, Kess explained to Zarakir that the town butcher had gotten some bad meat, and a bunch of people had been sick because of it. Zarakir thought the timing was suspicious, so he suggested heading to the marketplace to speak to the butcher. They headed that way, running into the other 5 partway there. Once Kess and Zarakir mentioned Cater's name, the others decided to go back to Ralph's house, as it seemed like he might know more. Kess and Zarakir continued on to the marketplace, telling the others they'd meet them there. The butcher's shop was closed, but Ames, the cheese seller who the 2 of them had helped a few days before, was glad to answer their questions. He agreed that it was odd that the butcher hadn't noticed the meat was bad, as it was very unlike him. Meanwhile, the others arrived at Ralph's house. Eversong and Tyr loitered outside his cart, while Adria and August circled around his house to see if anything stood out. Isaac knocked on the door until Ralph, who was apparently sleeping despite it being the afternoon already, dragged himself out of bed. Ralph wasn't happy to see Isaac at his door, and he became defensive when Isaac started asking questions about his cart. Tyr ended up climbing in through a window to charm Ralph while he was shouting at Isaac, which didn't go well. It got them a few answers to their questions, mainly a confirmation that Ralph hadn't lent his cart out to anyone and that he'd been learning magic. But once the spell ended, Tyr ended up having to jump out the window, as an angry Ralph turned his attention towards Isaac. An insult or 2 later, and Isaac ended up attacking him, just as Kess and Zarakir were walking in the direction of the house. And that is where we left off.